Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of the Human Affairs Committee to order on May 13th, 2019 at 7 PM here in the Aldermanic Chamber. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman June Karen. Here. Alderman Patricia Cleaves, out. Alderwoman Mary Ann McGleasy-Gilger.
She's on her way.
And Alderman Linda Harry Gathright is here. And our chair, Alderman Lloyd Wiltshire.
Thank you. So we have a quorum. Also in attendance is Carrie Skeena, UPD Manager. I'm going to ask for a public comment at this time. Anyone wishes to give any public comment? Okay, communications.
From Kerry Schema, UPD Manager, R 19-126 amended. There being, did I say that?
Nope. There being no objection, I will accept the communication and place it on file. Unfinished business.
None.
New business resolutions.
R 19-138, relative to the appropriation of additional U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Home Investment Partnership Program funds to NeighborWorks of Southern New Hampshire.
Carrie, are you here? Are you going to speak on this evening? Why don't you join us,
Okay.
please? Let the record reflect that Alderwoman Malizia-Goya has joined us at 7:02.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion on this?
Oh, should I? Okay. I make a motion to recommend, what am I doing? Is this
Yeah.
going to be final?
Yeah.
Oh.
On this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Final passage.
Motion is to recommend final passage. Carrie, can you give us a little background on this, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Carrie Skeena, Manager of the Urban Programs Department. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. So NeighborWorks came, or a resolution came before this committee a few months back to fund a project that they had recently acquired. It's referred to as Ledge McLaren. It's on the corner of Ledge and Central Street. And it's 8 housing units that was previously a tax credit and home project going back about 20 years. So NeighborWorks recently acquired it and realized it was in need of some rehab, much like any property after 20 years might be, with multiple tenants rotating through. And at the time, they were going to address just the exterior and kind of get the envelope tightened up and piecemeal the other parts. We went in and did the required inspection according to the HUD standards. And if we're going to be doing rehab projects, it has to meet a certain standard. As a result of those inspections, we realized that there was a bit more work that really should be done. And through discussions with them, they went out for bids and updated their construction budget, resubmitted, and requested additional funds in the amount of $110,000. What that will cover is 8 units, and it will be flooring, kitchens, bathrooms, and then some other lighter cosmetic like sheetrock and painting and things that need to be done. So the original request was going to cover the roof, the windows, some porches, some landscaping, drainage issues. There's quite a laundry list. So the request is before you. We're working on whether it's going to be the final number of 8 restricted units or 7. We're looking at what other funds are going into the project, and at this time, the home funds are about 60% of those costs. They're doing significant energy upgrades. They've received some grants to do that work, so we're looking at maybe reducing the number of units to 7 so that they can have some flexibility of having, if they ever run into an over-income tenant, that they have the ability to float those units around and keep in compliance. So that's it. With that, I'll take any questions.
Alderwoman Malizia-Goya.
Yes, thank you. Just refresh my memory, and for those who might not know, what would the breakup be in terms of units based according to income?
So it would be in this project, whether we do the 7 or the 8, either way, we would have what they call 2 low home units, and those are for tenants who earn 50% or less than the area median income. And those would also be restricted to what they call the low home rent. So it's also a lower rent standard. which at this time would be about $940 for a 3-bedroom. And then the remaining units would be what they call the high home, and those tenants would be between 60 and 80%. NeighborWorks, I believe, wants to target the 60% range. That's what their pro forma was based on. And those rents would be as much as $1,722. NeighborWorks is not looking at charging that much. They're more in the $1,200 range for those tenants.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before us is to recommend final passage of Resolution 19-138. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. New business ordinances. We have none. That's all right. Do I have a motion to take from the table Resolution 19-126?
So moved.
One second.
Okay.
Do I need to?
No, we don't need a second. Okay, so, motion is to take 19-126 from the table. Did we just vote on that?
Oh, no. we
No.
just-
No.
Okay. All those in
No.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And our 19-126 is on the floor.
And I would move to recommend final passage
Alderman Melissa Goya has moved for final passage
as amended.
of Resolution 19-126 as amended. I will not be voting on this as my employer has applied for money. Discussion? Alderman Karen.
Could Carrie give us a little background on some of the changes that were made, please?
Carrie?
Thank you.
Sure. So since the last meeting when the resolution was amended, we've received our final allocations or our true allocations from HUD. I was before Budget Committee last week talking about this as well, but the CDBG amount was about 1.7% less than what we were using as an estimate. And that could be due to a number of factors. We're a formula-based allocation, so any of the inputs that go into the formula, if our demographics change, then our allocation changes. So although nationally the program was level funded, we saw a slight reduction. The other piece of that is there are some new entitlement communities in the pot of funding this year, so that dilutes the amount that there is to spread out. The home program, after we started on this process, again, we just used level funding from last year as a starting point. Once the resolution started working its way through, once in the federal budget passed, we knew that home was going to be quite a bit lower, but we didn't know the final number, and that final amount was 10.6% less than we anticipated, so an almost $40,000 reduction there. So in my communication, I stepped through some of the numbers, and I know in the last resolution, I think there was just a mathematical error as it was being carried through that had to be resolved. So in the second paragraph of the communication, I figured it was just easier to wipe the slate clean and just say, the total to allocate from CDBG that is available, which includes reprogrammed funds that have been discussed. That number is $791,423.84. And then the home program is $359,905. So I recalculated some of those thresholds that are percentage based, and that's within the memo. So there needs to be reductions somewhere in the amended resolution as it stands, so that to come down and meet the total amount available.
What is the amount right now in contingency?
In the current resolution, I think
In
it was.
this resolution?
I think it's to be determined, so there isn't any in contingency yet.
I have it in here, but that's what was reprogrammed.
I
Alderwoman Melissa Goya.
I thought at one point we decided 5% was too low. Oh, and of course, my printer like skipped here. I'm looking at contingency. I think we decided 5% was too low, but we didn't want to do 10, and I thought we did like 7 or 8% for some reason, but I don't remember. And I'm looking at what I've printed and it smeared.
So we have nothing in contingency. Is there anything, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I just wondered if there was anything left to allocate or no?
No, we were over.
You were
We-
over.
Yeah, we, um, we were about $1,600 over based on what I'd calculated, because we were working off of 49,000 and it was actually 47,409. So we were $1,591 over in what we had allocated.
So I guess, we could look at projects that funding was added, maybe cutting some of those to come down with at least something in contingency, and we can't be over, we can't spend more money than we have. So I'm just wondering if you discussed any of the projects that were big, like the parking lot, the drainage issue, if that much money we've given them is even gonna make an impact at all. So I just throwing that out there, suggestion. I don't know, I mean, I don't know if that's enough money for them to do anything, because
Right.
it's a pretty good-sized project. Alderman Karen?
Yeah. Well, one of them is the project on Spring Street, because that $75,000 just puts a little dip, because it was, what, $300,000 for that particular
Yes,
project?
a little over that, yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with you that giving them a little might not do everything they want. Same with Plus Company, because that was a large amount, because that was for the HVAC systems that we were having some concerns with.
Well, and
Alderwoman Malizia-Goya.
yeah, and I think also we had talked about the parking lot drainage, and I believe when the Boys and Girls Club was in here, they were like very aware of these other items.
Yeah, and he did say that. He said if he didn't get funded, he understood because
Right.
of the other needs here,
Right.
which I
Right.
thought was pretty good.
So exactly how much money do we have to cut? I knew, couldn't
I didn't
print.
bring my computer. I usually,
And of all the, 40 pages of paper I have in
You
front of me, I
didn't-
don't have the spreadsheet, but I could go print it out real quick
yeah,
and
we'll
grab
wait.
that.
Why don't
Okay.
you?
Thank you. So, yeah, I don't know. Alderwoman Malizia-Goya.
Yes, while she's printing that out, I guess my other concern is, we know that some of these lines that we have to cut because of how they're determined by a percentage, will be impacting salaries in the city. Am I correct?
I'm sorry?
Some of these, the CDBG administration, if we have to cut that, that's going to be reduced because our grant was reduced, correct?
Right, and they'll still get a cap at 20%.
Right,
Right.
right. I guess my concern is what's the impact of that going to be on the budget? Like, where does that cap bring us in terms of,
We'd have to ask Carrie that
Yeah,
question.
so-
I can't answer that.
yeah, that would be my other concern, because that's usually built into salaries for that group of people.
Right,
Well, the max they can take is 20%
Right.
anyway, so that's the
Right.
max, even if,
Right,
no
They'll-
matter what the
no
numbers
matter what.
are,
I don't know if the
Right.
lead grant feeds into that.
yeah, I
And
think
know
the
that-
lead grant feeds into one position or part of one position.
Yeah, at least one,
Yeah.
maybe three.
Okay,
I think there are more than, I mean, that's a good-sized grant. I think there are more than one, maybe two or three positions that are, we should have asked for
Okay,
UP
well, we'll wait when
budget.
she comes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have my budget.
But I was happy to see I'd asked her to give us the other outstanding projects, which is
Yes.
what she started with in her memo, which I thought was interesting
Yes.
to know what the status was of some of these projects.
And to think that they got this money in October and they've really pushed through some of those projects, that's really good,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. Yeah, the city's sitting on a little bit of money too. I mean,
Yes.
they have, the Crown Hill pool money, the Ledge Street basketball courts, the Salem Street tot lot, the splash pad, Labine. I mean, they're sitting on a little bit of
Yes.
money, so. Not that we're taking any of it back. I didn't mean it to
No,
sound that way,
right.
but.
But we have given the city money to
Yeah.
put some of these
Yep.
programs together, so. Do you remember how much money we had, I'm sorry,
Alden Karen.
do you remember how much money we had in contingency last year? Wasn't it about 7 to 10,000? So I mean, if we're looking to put the same amount this year and then work from that for the reductions?
Alderwoman Lisa Goya.
I think I was thinking 7 to 8. I thought it was over 5 because I think this year we had started with maybe 5 and then we were like, oh, that's, when you look at the cost of work today, 5 really isn't much. So we decided we should
Go a little
go up.
higher.
Yeah, so
7.
I was thinking 7 to 8
7,
last year.
7 to 10.
Yeah, 7 to 10,
10
yeah,
was the
somewhere
number.
on that end.
That makes sense. Boys and Girls Club. So I was looking at the housing improvement program, the change that was made there about the emergency work.
Yes.
That is, and that's why I had asked Carrie to bring this income limits,
Right.
so that we could figure out, if we're comfortable with the 50% of the area median income for the HIP program, Housing Improvement Program. So 50% of the area median income for one person is $36,700. For two people, it's $41,950. I'm gonna wait for Carrie because I don't know at what level. I mean, it seems like people at the 30% income limits would probably be only collecting Social Security, right? The 22,000 and the 25,000. That's what it looks like there. Would be that population. This nice lady over here is going, yeah, I think so. Yeah. And the 50% is 36,700 for one and 41,950. That's a big jump. Are we looking at the 30% or the 50% or the 60%? I mean, is this what we want to do in here? On number 12?
Thank you.
I don't know, maybe it is, and I'm just asking, because I wasn't here last
We had
meeting.
basically implemented what Ms. Skana had recommended.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Thank you. Okay,
So we're looking at
19th, okay.
Alderman Wilshire? Yeah, before
Yeah.
I forget. Ms. Skana, while you were gone, what are these cuts going to do in terms of reduction for the administrative costs and, what's been figured into the budget that won't be there now that needs to be there for your office to run?
So the reductions actually impacted the budget that we couldn't meet the budget, basically, between the contractual increases that are in place with union contracts and fringe costs, and then we also cover all of the necessary things such as legal ads, registry of deed recordings, that type of stuff. So we were short, not by much, but about, I forget what the final number was, but from last year, it ended up being about a $14,000 reduction from where we were funded last year. And part of that is also the line for project delivery is included in the overall cost to carry out the department. That project delivery, it's not admin, that's the cost of the construction manager and a portion of one other person's time, only about 5 or 10%. And that's directly related, like I said, to carrying out the project. So scope of work, Davis-Bacon, writing contracts, overseeing the construction. So all in total, we ended up being a little short. And part of what we ended up figuring out was rather than try to increase that line where everything was already very tight this year with the other requests, because admin can only be what it can be. That's a percentage. So the only other line was that project delivery, and rather than shift costs there, we're going to charge part of my salary to some general fund, and I'm going to work on a project with Director Marchant, the Director of Community Development. So part of my hours will allocate toward that, and that was how we were able to fill that gap this year.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you know how much was in contingency last year, Carrie?
Last year ended up being quite large because we had the opposite thing happen where we estimated a lower number and got more.
Okay, all
So
right.
that's why we ended up with about 49,000
Okay,
in contingency. But I think going into it, it was, it's, it's ranged anywhere from the 5,000, 7,000 mark to,
47,000?
well, right, but a planned amount, sometimes it's been 10 or 12. Really depends on the year.
What's the committee's pleasure?
So, did you want to ask about, we're done with the percent of income. Okay.
Oh, well, I did want to mention that, because I think Carrie was out of the room.
Yeah.
How, and I respect your opinion, and that's how the committee voted on this, or decided to carry this out, but how did you arrive at the 50% of the area median income rather than the 30% or the 60%? I'm just curious.
Initially, I recommended a 30% as the target. The only reason to change that was feedback from the community. 30%, my rationale at the time for choosing that was because it's going to be given out as a grant, and it's really those lower amounts. It's only the under $5,000 projects, so those are the critical emergency, we have to fix this now type of thing. And if we were going to be giving it out as grants and not having that money come back, I felt it should be targeted to the lowest income homeowners that we deal with. And again, the only reason to go up to the 50% mark, which is still a very low income household, was based on some of that community feedback that we had received over the last few meetings. So I think, I ran numbers, and I would say the majority of homeowners that we've assisted in the last few years have been in the 50 to 80%, but we've not taken on this type of need at this point. And I feel that the people who are least likely to come up with the funds at that lower dollar value are probably the lowest income people. So it's not,
So that would be the 30%.
it would be,
It seems
yeah,
like those people are probably just collecting Social Security and probably nothing else,
right.
and that's what they live on.
Yeah, at 30%, it's either you're on public assistance or some type of Social Security. If you're, any kind of wages would put you above that 30% mark. And it's not to say that people over that income level wouldn't be assisted, it's just that it would be in the form of a loan rather than a grant. So it's who do you want to target the grant funds to?
I would think you would want to target the grant to the 30%, the lowest income. And then as it goes up, or maybe maybe up to 5,000, half of it's a loan, half of it's a grant. I don't know. I don't want to really muddy the waters that much, I guess. Alderwoman Elisa Goya?
Yeah, I was just looking here, I don't have, the memo you sent us. You sent us a memo for our last meeting, and, it's one of the things I didn't print. Do you, because we talked about this, and you had put something in there about, reviewing things at the 50% level, I thought, and I can't,
Mhm.
I know there was
You're
more
right.
around at the 50% level.
Mhm.
Carrie?
So it wasn't a memo, I mean, it ends up being a communication, but it was an email when I realized I wasn't going to
Right,
be able.
right.
So I don't have a printed copy either, but I do recall that felt like those two topic points might be raised at the last meeting and just wanted to, provide a little bit of input. So the discussion point was that there had been some, again, community input that that number should come up from the 30% to the 50%. And, I think either way would honestly be okay. I still lean toward the 30% mark if it's going to be a grant. And it's going to be, again, it's not a lot of money. So the people who are most cash strapped are going to be the lowest income people. And again, it's not that we're not going to assist the people at 50%, it's just going to be in the form of a loan. The other discussion point in that, where I think you're recalling, is the floor, having there be a bottom number as far as what we should assist and not assist if it's under a certain dollar amount. And, the conversation around that is there has to be kind of a bottom line somewhere because, and whether that's a set line in our policies or it's something that we review on a case by case basis, but we don't want to get into doing maintenance. So we don't want applications coming in saying, my faucet's broken, I can't use my kitchen sink.
Right.
That's maintenance.
Right.
Versus I've had a pipe that's burst open and have no water supply.
So you suggesting that in this legislation, this would be the place to add like a minimum of maybe 1,000 or 1,500 or something like that? Or did you have a number in mind?
I think, was it at 1,000 originally?
Yeah, I have it here, and this is, again, the email that you sent because you wouldn't be here. Um, We could remove the lower end threshold altogether since construction work will rarely be less than 1,000 anyway. The concern was that lower dollar amounts may be dipping into maintenance. However, we could make the determination internally using the published HUD guidelines. That was regarding that. And then the next paragraph was the other issue was whether the grants should be for those earning 30,000 or less. I'm comfortable pushing that to 50 or 30%. I'm sorry. I'm comfortable pushing that to 50%, but would not agree to owners at 80 AMI. Since these grants are up to 5,000, it should be restricted to the most vulnerable owners. So that's what we had worked from.
I'm seeing some of this in the audience. I personally feel the 50 is a little high for a grant, a little. I mean, it's not like these people are well off or anything, but I like the 30% as a grant and the 50% as a loan. I mean, they don't even have to pay it back until they sell the house, right? So it's, unless they have the means to, but. What's anyone else think? Alderman Karen?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the fact that that money comes back and we can push it back out again for someone else who needs help, I think is very important for the community at large. And I think that a lot of this can be done internally, case by case. I think that's important because they're looking at these things every day. And I like the idea that if we can give some, 30% income, that we give them a grant. But I think we should have $1,000 or $1,500 so that we're not looking at maintenance, that this is a major problem, water heater burst or something like that. But But I think it's important that that money is revolving for the community at large. And if we give away all of it as grants, we're not going to have anything to help the next person within our community.
Do you want to make a motion to do that?
Oh, sure. Oh, did I say?
So,
So I'll make a motion that the grants are for income of 30%.
the 30% of the AMI, which is
Right.
the area median income.
And that it would be loans at the 50%. Yeah. And I think that in order to make sure we're not doing maintenance, that we should have a minimum of at least $1,500. Or do you think 1,000 would be, I don't, I'm thinking 1,500, but
I'm looking at Carrie.
I am too. I'm like, I
I was going
I was
by
comfortable either way, but
you said 1,000? 1,000?
I never suggested the original
No,
bottom
okay.
number. But it was 1,000, I think, at one
Okay.
point.
Well, then I would say leave it at 1,000.
okay.
You remember all that?
Alderman Malisugolia.
I guess I'm comfortable with the 1,000 because I think that nothing's going to be that low anyway, if it's really, beyond maintenance. But I guess with the grants, my only concern is, I'm looking at these numbers, and I understand what Alderman Karen's saying in terms of the money coming back at a certain point, but I'm just feeling uncomfortable with going only to 30 and not including 50.
Well, I think we take baby steps. I mean, this is our first time doing grants. I think we ought to give it to the neediest of our citizens and loans to those who, don't even have to really pay it off unless they sell their house and they come into a little bit of money. I think I think that would work. My opinion.
Yeah.
Alderwoman Gathright.
I have a question, and it might not be, this is what we were talking about, but did Mr. T-Bone come to our last meeting?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. Didn't we talk about something being $500? I'm
Oh.
just asking, because I'm trying to remember that meeting.
I didn't print out everything from the end of the minutes. His comments were in there. His comments very closely mirrored I shouldn't say his comments. Ms. Skaina's communication with us were very similar to what he had
Right,
asked us to consider.
okay.
So it was the 50%, not 30, to extend it to 50. And I think he had asked for no lower limit, rather than keeping it at 1,000.
That just opens us up for doing more maintenance instead
yeah.
of home repairs.
Okay.
So the motion is to amend section 12. Emergency work costing up to $5,000. Whew, that went up fast. May be offered in the form of a grant rather than a loan to owners at or below 30% of the AMI, and then loans at 50% of the AMI. Alderwoman Malisugolia.
Yeah, I guess we do it this year at 30, and we just collect some data and see what we have in terms of people coming in at 50. And, again, being cognizant of the fact that costs are going up. So even though they're at 50, the cost.
But the grants aren't going up.
Right. But in terms of the hit they take personally to have it done, to have work done. So I would just like us to come back next year and have some sense of how this gets rolled out this first year.
That's fair.
And of course, next year we'll be doing our 5-year plan, so
Yes.
we'll have some data to consider.
Alderman Karen.
Right, I agree. I think that we have to take baby steps on this because we want to make sure that we have money to continue this. And if you give everything out as a grant, you won't have anything to work with. And if we lose funding
Right.
again next year, it could be a problem. But, there's always room to add.
So you're going to amend your motion to add the $1,000 minimum?
I thought I did.
Oh, you,
I thought,
okay.
oh,
I think you
yeah,
might have.
yeah. I said, if that's what it was, let's leave it at the 1,000.
Okay, so you've all heard the motion. Is there any more discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Motion on the floor is to recommend final passage of Resolution 19-126 as amended. Further discussion on that? Carrie?
So I just wanted to note that what I stepped out to print and handed out, and I gave an extra copy for the record as well, is just a spreadsheet of the breakdown. It actually shows from the first meeting all the way through to when the actual allocation amounts. So if you go down about 3/4 of the page, the amount that the existing resolution is over is $8,903.50.
Oh.
I know that number was,
Oh, so we haven't taken care of that yet?
No.
I was jumping the gun.
No, we had 1,600 to cut and now this additional, so yeah, so 9,000 basically.
Okay, so we can't pass it until we do that because it won't balance.
Right.
Alderwoman Melissa Goya.
Well, I'm looking at the drainage, the Boys and Girls Club, and my first inclination is to just take it off of there. And it's $8,903.50. But I feel like already what we're giving them is really not sufficient. So do we zero that out and then reallocate what's left, which would be about 11,000, to some of these other items here? And I was looking at the children's home, and I was looking at the Plus Company for their air conditioners. And I guess I'm looking at the items here thinking, what do we need to do to maintain buildings and maintain them so the clients or the individuals who are using these facilities are comfortable, and also the energy costs for some of these buildings are addressed. So I'm just talking out loud,
Alderman Karen.
So
thinking
I
out
agree,
loud.
I agree with some of yours, but don't we still have to put some money in to contingency,
Oh, yeah, we don't?
right? We have to put
Yes,
money,
we have
so if you were looking to eliminate the 25,000 from the Boys and Girls Club, you could put that balance of 11,000 into the contingency program, and that, you wouldn't be touching anybody.
Well, there's 25,000 in that line.
But you got to take 8,900 anyway.
Yeah, there's 20 in the Boys and Girls Club.
No, 25.
25.
25.
I'm looking at what I have here.
Was 25, so then if you took the 8,900 that we have to balance us out.
So that leaves $16,097
So
that you can reallocate somewhere.
you could put that,
So-
put half of it into contingency and
Divided by two, that would be $8,048 in contingency.
8,048.
Yep.
Okay. And I would suggest then maybe just splitting that and putting half of it into the children's home and half of it into Plus Company.
Okay, so that would be $4,024
Yeah.
to each of the
Yeah.
aforementioned organizations. That even us out, Carrie?
I actually didn't bring my calculator back when I ran back to print as soon as I sat down, but I was just gonna, if I may make a comment on the Plus Company, could that be rounded to whole dollars for their award? And I know that's gonna make the math crazy, but maybe the change amount could go into contingency.
Sure.
Because it makes it difficult when we do the
Yeah.
agreements with the agencies if there's not whole dollars.
So we put $4,012 in there, but we take the 84 cents out and put it into contingency.
Yep.
Okay. Or $4,024, rather, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
Carrie?
was the 50 cents, so the amount that the resolution was over was 8,903 and 50 cents. Was that in your math as well?
No.
Okay.
I don't like dealing with anything less than $1 either.
So let's put the 50 cents in contingency too.
Okay.
Okay, that works. Okay. Carrie?
And then the home funds need to be adjusted in the resolution as well.
Okay.
And there's a breakdown in the memo.
Okay. So the home grant activities will be carried out with an estimated annual grant of $398,000. Home grant administration is $39,800. Chodo, or Community Housing Development Organization Reserve, is $59,700. And then number 3, affordable housing development is $298,500. And that's the home funds. Alderwoman Malizi Golia.
Okay, so, Ms. Skene, if I'm following correctly, we need to amend those numbers then
Correct.
to reflect the 4,000, April 15, 2019 allocation amounts. So the home grant will be 3,000 or 359,905.
Correct.
Administration will be 35,991. Chodo, 53,986, and affordable housing development, 269,929, and I'm assuming your calculator was used here, for a total home of $359,905. So we will amend the previous numbers with those numbers in the grant.
Okay, I was looking at this that you sent. I didn't realize you were talking about this sheet. Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I believe the numbers you read were in the resolution from the last meeting.
Right.
And since then, the grant amount came in and it was less.
Excellent. Any further discussion? The motion before us is for final passage of Resolution 19-126 as amended. Any further discussion? Going once? Going twice? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. That motion carries. Thank you very much. So, new business ordinances.
None.
General discussion. Alderwoman Lisa Goya.
Thank you once again, Ms. Skana, and thank you for, although we have all these sheets, you always seem to help us bring it all together so we can figure out from one meeting to the next where we should be focused. So thank you very much, especially with the allocation coming in lower and helping us make sense of that and what it means for the community and the grants that we're looking at here. So.
Alderman Karen.
Yes, I agree. I want to thank Carrie for all she's done for both this and the CAC group with the allocations of their funding as well. She does a good job and keeps us on our toes with the numbers.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
That's good. Yes, thank you, Carrie, for everything. Okay. No further discussion. No non-public needed. Do I have a motion? Alderman Karen.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:47. Thank you.
Thank you.